Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream. Are we rolling? We're rolling.
We are, Dave. Hello.
I got overexcited there. Well, hello, Casey. lovely to see you and hear you again.
You too. I know you missed me terribly, so I'm glad we could have another podcast to get together and catch up on dreams and life.
Well, that's it. I'm living a dream this weekend because I'm actually flying to Paris. So
okay, I know. You don't have to keep rubbing it in. Paris in general is like the dream, whatever you're doing there, right?
Yeah, that's my dream. But and Paris is known for art, would you say? I'd say art.
Definitely. We're going to go see some art if you're going to Paris.
Well, that is why today we're actually going to have our guests are going to be real live artists.
Excellent.
Not one. We've got two artists on the same podcast to talk to you and me. I think we're evening up the board here, having two people.
Also, that means I get my dose of art without having to get on a plane. So thank you to our guests for bringing all the extra artist creativity.
Well, shall I introduce them so you know
Please
exactly? Well, we have Matthew Picton, and next to him we have the lovely Claire Burbridge. And behind them, our audience can't see this because it's audio, but I believe we've got some art. Hello, artists.
Hi.
Tell Casey where you live, because I think Casey, you'll love this, because where's your favourite place to do comedy?
Oh, is that where they are?
Near Medford.
Wow.
Medford. Not quite Medford, the Mecca, but near Medford. Yeah.
They don't enjoy me in Medford. They don't like the way my brain works. But I feel like you guys probably would.
Well, Casey, next time you're up here, we'll be your audience.
Yeah, we'd be happy to come.
Yeah, we love going to Chad.
Oh, yes.
So wait, I want to know what's going on behind you. I know, Claire, I've looked you up. Your art is not only fantastic, but you can also purchase it as wallpaper. Is this true?
Well, what you're looking at there is actually three things. It's all piled up because I've got a couple of shows coming up. And my studio is too small to contain it. So there's wallpaper, then there's a sold piece in a frame, and then there's a new piece that Matthew is going to put in a frame for me soon.
That's funny. Isn't that funny? Because when I play Medford, I feel like the comedy is like wallpaper for that place. I always feel like we're just in the background and no one cares. You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's comedy in general.
Yeah.
I want to know, okay, so you guys both are artists. Is that what brought you together? Is it helpful to your relationship? Does it ever cause friction? Because as artists, we can be probably a little bit moodier. Pick any one of those or all of those questions.
You're just judging other people by yourself there, Casey.
I might be making some assumptions. Feel free to correct me.
Well, I'll start with the bit about being artists together. Actually, we work as a team.
Yeah.
And actually, it's very helpful, because we've both been with other partners who work quite in the same field as ourselves, and having another pair of eyes and another experience to sort of interact with regarding what you're doing is massively helpful. And so, that is part of how we operate, is that, one of us is often busier than the other at one given time, and the other one might better pick up the slack and take over some of the the other roles, like there's lots of that, like framing and like shipping and other administrative tiresomenesses, but
basically Matthew does all the donkey work because I'm useless at it, which is very convenient. No.
Well played. So wait, when you were like little kids dreaming of what you were going to be when you grew up, was it to be painters? And did it occur to you like, ooh, and if I also marry someone who does that, they can help with all that stuff I can't do? Or like, how did that all work out?
Well, that's funny you should ask that question, because, yes, I always wanted to be an artist. It was like an affliction. And everyone in my family were like, yeah, Claire's the artist. They're all sensible things like doctors and engineers and entrepreneurs and things like that. And, yeah, I actually made a rule that I would never, ever date another artist. And
that worked well for you.
Yeah, rule breaker, Claire.
Okay, so you dated some non-artists, but they didn't get it. And then you met Matthew and you were like, oh my God, that was the missing link.
No, I did. I tried to date bankers and lawyers and politicians and things like that. And then I got married to a musician. And we were, both in the arts, but it was like being married to somebody in the armed forces. They were never there. So, which my dad was in the armed forces. So I thought, somehow I actually managed to marry my dad. So.
What about you, Matthew? Did you date any bankers or lawyers?
No, I had a variety of lawyers and doctors and those sort of professionals and some other misfits, right? And
I love they're the misfits of society, lawyers and bankers.
So I had done that, but I mean, I sort of came to being an artist a bit later on than Claire. I mean, when I was about 20, I started deciding and dreaming that it was time to change track from doing politics and economics at university to becoming an artist. And it was kind of a slow road to sort of gradually becoming that. It took a while for me to sort of get really going in my 30s doing this. And
Were you working in politics as well, or was that just?
No, I just did a degree in it, and then I kind of felt like I wanted to do something more exciting and more creative, basically, than regurgitating sort of essays on obscure subjects, which is really a requirement of academia, right? So that wasn't for me. That was really dull. So I set out with a rather idealistic sort of bent in mind about how it was time to be a painter. And it took, as I say, it took a while to unfold and to sort of actually make something happen out of it. So,
yeah, I think when you go off the beaten path a little more, it's like that. Were people supportive? Like I remember I paint not as well as you all, but like as a hobby. But I remember in high school, I dropped honors math analysis for painting. And my guidance counselor was basically like, you're never going to get into college and there's no hope for you in life if you do that. And I was like, well, I've still, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. And here I am. And I'm like, I'm guessing people have felt comfortable saying things like that to you throughout life, or maybe I'm projecting again.
Well, it's different in Britain. It really is different. Like things like art are quite respected in much more than, I mean, I've done a bit of...
That must be nice.
Nice. But the interesting thing coming to the United States is people say, what do you do? And you go, I'm an artist. And they go, oh yeah, I'm an artist. So they don't realize. And then, so you end up saying, well, I'm a professional artist, or you come up with a word like that.
Like, no, I really pay my bills making art. I am doing the thing that most of you are afraid to even try and do.
Well, they've always told not to do it by the system. I mean, I've taught some very talented young people, and their parents will always go, no, you need to study accountancy.
That's right. They always dissuade them.
They always do. So I've observed that at every level, from children to college teaching, and it's interesting. It's interesting to observe it, but in Britain, you can take a degree in arts. And
my background was interesting with that because I had a mother who really was very supportive, who was a writer herself, who just believed in the idea that you could go and be an artist, and it was just great, But it was my dad who was a careers advisor, so he had a bit more of a view on it. And in fact, when I was about 23, he called me up there too. He was a careers advisor in Nottingham at the university. He called me up and said, well, I think we need to straighten things out a bit and get a path in life. Called me up there for a meeting in the careers office and got me on their new computer, which was, early days of computing, to see if it could find something that would work out for me. We put all this data in, we did all these interviews, and then the computer spits out a blank sheet of paper with one line at the top, nothing suitable.
I had that when I was at school. I went to a comprehensive and they had a careers advisor, and I remember everyone went in there and they all came out sort of like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go. And when it came to me going in there, and he's looking through my school report and he goes, so cricket or acting? I really don't know what to say to you. I went out there going, oh, all right.
I kind of wish they gave us those tests like that. I'd be curious to see where I shook out.
Yeah. Well,
but do you find that them telling you that, does that validate what you're feeling? Or does it, were you already leaning toward creative? Or are you like, don't tell me what to do. I don't want to do, you're wrong.
I was good and stubborn. And, and that's part of being an artist is you have to be very stubborn. And so however delusional it may seem at any given age in life, and especially when you're young, I mean, you have to kind of maintain the kind of stubbornness and desire. And later it becomes like, well, there's nothing else you'd want to do. So,
and you have to be unemployable.
Ah, yes, that's important.
Oh, that's a major asset, I think, in the arts.
I mean, I got fired from every single, small little job.
Well, what's the longest job you've ever had, Claire?
I think, I had a weekend job for like 3 years, but then that's because.
I thought you were going to say just for one weekend.
Right, me too. That's what I thought she meant too.
I had a job for one weekend, and I knew that I couldn't do it.
They knew she couldn't do it.
3 years, but it was because I was dating the boss's son.
That's right.
And when we broke up, I got fired.
Of course you did.
That was kind of interesting.
What was the job, just out of interest?
It was working in a very, very posh shop on the King's Road in London.
Oh yeah, Chelsea.
Interior design shop. So it was great because it was.
And they did wallpaper.
They did wallpaper, so it actually inspired me for later in life to think, well, I could do that as well. But,
Is that what made you think of doing wallpaper? Like, what you guys both have very interesting, unique, sort of like graphic based work, or lack of better description. Please correct me. Like, what led you to that style of art? Did you try different styles, or was that where you started? Or
well, the wallpaper is that's kind of like my pension plan. Actually, that's just printing money.
It's, by the way, your wallpaper is beautiful.
I was going to ask that question. What's the difference for you? Are you sometimes inspired to create art, or is it always, hold on, how much are they paying for this?
It's never that. It's never that. Although I have to say, I've been doing public art projects for the last 4 years, and they pay very well, and they're hard work, and you have to apply for them, and you have to do something that they want. So that's the point of maturity I sort of awoke to only about 4 years ago. And I'm
really
52 now. So, I mean, it took a long time.
Welcome to adulthood. I mean, but how, that survival thing, how do you do it? I mean, like, it like we said, like in America, it's kind of like, well, you're an artist. Oh, I'm an artist. Don't we? No, you really are. That's how you make a living. I'll tell you how I do it is I never look at our bank accounts. That's the rule. Because once I looked at it, I had a panic attack and fell on the floor.
And then you couldn't work for a while.
I couldn't do any work for about a year after that.
Yeah.
So the rule is I don't look at it.
So Claire has to stay in the right place, you see, don't you?
Yeah.
Right.
And then
I keep everything going so that it doesn't go down a hole at any point, right? And she can keep doing her work, right? So that's how that works. And on a more practical level, how does it work? It's a sort of an up and down business where a lot can come all of a sudden and nothing can come for lots of months on a row as well. And so,
and we have no debts.
Yeah, we have
no debts. Like you can.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, that was interesting how that happens. That took moving countries to get rid of debts, and it took the exchange rate working in the right direction. And luck, it took some luck, and then all the debts
Actually, I've got something to add to that. Actually, there could be many artists in cities struggling away, but having a house with a high debt or high burden, but they're quite a good asset value. And if they just moved out somewhere cheaper and sold the thing and bought somewhere with no debt on it, then their whole the economics, their living standard would work out.
So that's why we live in Ashland, Oregon, and not San Francisco.
And I have to say, I have been to there. I think your house is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think you've created this like little artistic bubble there, haven't you? I mean, you have loads of land and you've got a beautiful house. You live in a beautiful place. And you are more than surviving. I mean, so that's. I think Matthew might have just brought up something like I presume San Francisco might have been appealing, or New York, but you're in Ashland.
Yeah.
You've lived in both those places.
I've lived in those places.
Yeah.
I've lived in San Francisco for like 5 years, and in New York for a year or two, and then that was in the days when it was relatively economical to live in those places, but it just isn't anymore. So I feel like artists can make a sort of change to somewhere where they can have a viable kind of life and still make their work, right? And you just have to do a lot of driving.
Is there some truth in the fact that artists migrate together? Because like when I was living in New York myself, they said it's over. All the artists are leaving New York and going.
That's never happening.
Going to Philadelphia. They did. I mean, it's an economic. I mean, the artists do. I mean, like, and when I was looking up artists, New York art, that all the artists had moved to Los Angeles at a certain point. They didn't stick around because it's too expensive. I think Moby wrote a great article about it, about how all the artists have left New York.
Well, it's kind of true, and I think London's the same. They're all living on the south coast of Britain, aren't they?
Right.
There's lots of artists living in Portland, Oregon, and they're coming. Even from LA, loads and loads of them. But interestingly, I spoke to some people up there about it, some artists and people that work in the arts, and they said it's created this incredibly competitive bubble, and they're all turning into like British people and whinging and complaining, and
it rains a lot.
They were actually saying you're really lucky that you don't live within this, because it's becoming a nightmare or something like that. So
it's really smart. You've like built your own container to be able to do what you love in a way that you don't have to pick, the commerce jobs over what fills your creativity. Do you think it's easier that you're together too? And if you were single, maybe you wouldn't be able to do it?
Definitely.
Was it more of a struggle when you were on your own?
For me, it was. I mean, I think Matthew's much higher functioning than I am, and he can do all the packing, driving trucks, that kind of thing. So he's really up to my game in a massive way. I totally give you all that credit, because I would have just not given up. I would have just been exceptionally poor.
I'm like imagining your marriage vows now. It's like, I promise to pack and ship all of your artwork as long as my fingers still work.
what I'm gleaning from this is that you're not only artists. Matthew is also sort of the FedEx of the family. That you actually are trucking your art. So when you're delivering it again, can you sign for this, please? You're actually the artist. Is that how it works?
Well, sometimes it's like. It's more like if we're going to do a show and we need pieces are too big to fit in our vehicle, and I just rent a truck and drive it, and it's that kind of thing, really.
And you installed all of the public art I did.
I did that as well.
True. I just sat there and watched and took photos.
And it went out to dinner. It was great.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have all those backup skills, right? Like, did you start out having other people do it, or you just learn because you need it to be done, or how does that happen?
Yeah, on the way. I mean, especially with framing, you can spend so much money on the framing, especially in big cities. Unbelievable. They would charge more to make a frame than it cost to buy a nice piece of furniture for some reason. So I do all of it now, and I get the frame shipped in from the East Coast, and I do the whole thing, and that does save.
You don't make the frames; you put them together.
But they charge a ton of money to do all that putting together stuff. So
that's great. You make an incredible saving. There's all these little hacks that we've basically learned over the years, I think, which means there's extra money to travel, which is what Matthew is really passionate about, and I just follow him around, basically.
Is that what inspires you guys, is travel?
Certainly me. My work is often about, has been very sort of geographically interested in all sorts of places and cultures and histories, and continues to be that way. So I find it very inspirational to go somewhere, and also to see the art in the different places of big things.
And then that's good, because that's a tax deduction.
Yeah, that's right.
If you go and look at art.
Another hack.
So what inspires you, Claire? Because you're very prolific as well. Okay,
what really inspires me now? When I moved to Ashland, I came from central London. And I'd lived in London for 20 years, and, I was inspired basically by all sorts of things like music and dance. Lots of my work was figurative and sculptural. And then I moved to Ashland, Oregon, and I was like, oh my God, nothing is relevant anymore. And I took a whole year just hiking. Matthew would say to me, are you going to do some work today? I was like, no, I'm going on a walk. So I got on a walk. And then after a year, I started doing these drawings, all relating to the nature here in Oregon. And I really explored it. And I gained all these other passions about mushrooms and wild edible plants. And that's the inspiration for my fine art and the wallpaper. that I decided to do as a kind of immersive thing for galleries, because it got so boring having exhibitions in white cube galleries. You know, I just wanted to make an immersive experience. So that's actually where the inspiration came for the wallpaper. My penchant.
So do you find that like your work changes as you change, and it's, you know, like a reflection of where you are in life?
Yes, it's like the whole inner realm. So it's a conversation between where I'm living, what I'm looking at, and my inner state. So it just changes. It's changed a lot over the years, luckily.
And did you know on your year of hiking, besides just getting supremely fit, did you understand subconsciously that's what you were doing, that you were finding inspiration, or were you just escaping at that point?
I think I think my motivation was to escape Matthew's questions, and I also had this sculpture commissions complete. So it took me a whole year to do it, and it wasn't even a very big commission. It was for people in London, and within that time, I worked out doing sculpture was too cumbersome, expensive to ship, all those things. And I thought, I need to go back to the drawing board. So I just picked up pen and paper, and I was like, okay, this is my new medium, which was my original medium as a child. So I basically went back to square one. And it grew.
Is that when the wallpaper started?
Yeah, well, that started about, I think it was
A few years later.
Yeah, it was about 6 years ago. So I've been here 13 years. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm fascinated by the wallpaper. It was like a weird childhood dream of mine to be like, I want to design wallpaper, but like I look at yours and I'm like, nah, Casey, you're not creative enough to do anything like that. You leave it to the people who know what they're doing.
Just go for a hike. Go for a hike, Casey.
We'll see.
Spend a year in the San Gabriel Mountains. See what you come up with. But what about? Are you disciplined in slightly different ways? Is that the impression that I'm getting?
Very disciplined in different ways. Yeah.
Matthew is steady and works every day, and I have a rule that I never work in the morning. Why would I be self-employed if I didn't work
anything before noon?
I refuse to do anything.
You're like the British workforce, yeah, and take Friday off. And take Friday off. It's Friday, isn't it? I don't want to work on a Friday. Oh, dear no.
You got to take advantage of the downtime when you have it, because when you have all the deadlines, you know, then you're not mad you didn't waste the downtime.
Exactly. But then I do work every day, and I sometimes work in the evening because I like working in the evening. Matthew does not. And you're more an early morning, and I'm a definitely not early morning person. Basically.
True.
So let's go back to when you're going around these galleries around the world that you were telling us about, Matthew. What are you a critique, or are you inspired by this?
I'm looking for the inspiration. I mean, for example, love to. Currently, I've been really wanting to go to Belgium to go and see the amazing sort of altarpiece in Ghent and see the big Bruegel collection in the Art History Museum in Brussels, and maybe go to the Vienna one and see a certain period of artwork. And I think you would like to go and see all Monet's water lilies again, because
I love
reinstall. There's sort of certain things that you would go somewhere for, but a certain particular type of work, or to see the body of work in the museums. That's more the inspiration, I think. Yeah.
It's that, yeah. It's very inspiring to go and look at art by other artists. It's very, very inspiring.
Yeah.
Not that we steal from it, but you kind of harvest the energy that it gives you. That's what the inspiration is. It builds enthusiasm. That's what we both get.
That's very true. We do, yeah. And that's an important part of it, for sure.
Is there like a certain feeling that you guys look for in something that is like what wakes you up, or you just, when you find it?
Well, we know what we're looking for. I mean, for instance, I have a degree in art history, so I know a fair bit about art. Matthew is just incredibly knowledgeable. He seems to remember everything that he reads. And so we have favourite things. For instance, we went to Honolulu because David Hockney, there was an exhibition of his prints there. And that was incredibly inspiring. He's my favourite living British artist. You also love his work.
Yeah, I love his work.
My great aunt was a supporter of his and a subject of one of his paintings. Beverly Hills Housewife was my great aunt.
I've seen that. It's a famous.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
It's a fun random shout out to Aunt Betty.
Yeah. I believe I've got a David Hockney in the other room, actually, because he was a friend of my late father-in-law.
A real one?
Mhm.
Well done.
Well, don't tell everyone.
Well,
that
yeah.
some-
Oh, is that?
David's address is.
Yeah. So if anyone's passing through Detroit, come and have a look.
So when you guys think about like, what your dream was when you were, younger in your 20s, whatever, like, would you say that your lives now of what you're doing is that the dream? Is it measuring up? Has it shifted? Is there still dream to be had? Where are you at?
Go on, Matthew. You answer.
Okay, well, I would say when I was in my 20s, I had this dream. I thought the dream would be to like become an artist and show in a gallery, and there was some numbers of galleries, maybe get reviewed and taken seriously in that way and make a living at it. And so all of that's come to pass. So I would say that was measuring up, really. I mean, one might have fantasies, right, which might have been slightly different at the time where you were going to make it into the big museum, right, and all of that. But I think the dream is more something about the kind of like the sort of realizable reality in some ways. And I think for the most part that's occurred. So, if I can look back at myself at 23 feeling kind of super insecure about it all really underneath the chutzpah or whatever you say.
Yeah.
How does it feel now? Now you're like, yeah, we're doing it.
Well, I mean, good.
I'm going to stop putting words in your mouths. I'm sorry. I'm like impressed. You're doing it.
Yeah, it has its like, there are moments when you kind of like a bit more and you'd like a bit more exposure or a bigger gallery or whatever. There's always going to be that. But I think on the other hand, as long as you're still actually excited and making more work and you can keep it going, that's also a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. As long as you're still finding new inspiration and like loving what you do.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I'm different from you.
What do you think?
I think my dream was based on freedom. Like, I never wanted a job. Like, I would watch my dad. He worked so hard. And for what? So I just used, anyway, the whole thing. So I think it came from that and looking at society. And I thought, I need to not be part of this. And also being highly kind of, I hate being told what to do still. Just so it's kind of impossible having any form of, I really respect people who have careers and they collaborate and, all that kind of thing. Basically, I'm not a team player at all.
Thank God for Matthew.
He's older than I am. I have great respect for him. Not that much older. Hundreds of years older.
But your father was in the military, right? This is what you were telling me.
That's probably why she doesn't like being told.
Yeah. Is this a complete rebellion? Because I've got to think military's got to be the one place where you go, do as I say. It doesn't matter. Yeah, if I say jump, you are jumping, right?
I know. And I have a twin brother who also joined the military, that kind of thing. And so that whole world, I have to say, yes, I'm rebellious against.
Wow.
But being an artist, I always thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. You just do what you want all day. I'm sure I can make it work.
But it is sort of like undisciplined discipline, right? Because you're determined to like follow the flow and it just doesn't look the same all of the time to people outside. I can relate to you. So I'm like, yes, Claire, yes, follow that. There's nothing wrong.
But then what happens is you have to make yourself in the flow. So over the years, I've had to be rigorous with my mental health and exercise and all sorts of things. It's taken me on quite the journey, I have to say, which landed me in Ashland, Oregon. So
do you have like a routine that helps keep you in that space?
Yes.
What is it?
Well, I practice different types of yoga and meditation for at least an hour a day in the morning. And sometimes it's only half an hour. It depends how long it takes to get into that place of enthusiasm where I know I can create something that's not going to like add darkness to the world. That's my kind of mission, is to not add darkness to the world, because there's a lot of that. And there's enough art out there that you look at it and it makes you really depressed. So anyway.
So if your art had a message, it would be, feel good?
It would be run out into the hills and be free,
Love that. How about you, Matthew? Do you have a routine, or does your art have a message?
I do a bit of qigong to start with in the morning, which is good because it's about calming the mind down. right? And then I sometimes listen to some teachings a bit while I'm working, which is good, helpful too.
Eckhart Tolle, he actually brought me and Matthew together because when I was getting divorced, and we were friends for years, Matthew sent me some Eckhart Tolle to listen to try and get me through my divorce without going crazy. And it worked. He was our matchmaker.
Well, that's right.
That's beautiful. That's a good matchmaker.
And you both teach. Did I hear that as well? Saying that you both teach?
Well, no, I don't. And you had to go.
Oh, absolutely not. No. But
I've done teaching, but I found that each time I did it, and I never looked for it, people would always ask me and I had some inability to say no. So the last teaching I did was at the local university, and I taught one semester, which was great fun. I love the students. It was fantastic. And they asked me to come back, but I said no because...
What were you teaching them?
I was teaching, it was called Intro to Drawing. So I would teach people who could not pick up a pencil how to draw, which was fantastic. But also there were people on the course who were just trying to get points towards their degree, and they were already good at drawing. So I was like, well, why are you here? Anyway, and then you had to grade it. And I was like, I ended up making them all grade each other's things because I was going to start grading art and giving people complexes. Anyway, so that was
so
that.
what made you say no to the next semester? Say, I'm done with this.
Oh, well, because I was going to have to teach the same course.
Oh.
Very boring, and they were not offering me huge sums of money.
Weren't.
If they were, maybe. No, I don't think so. I'm glad they weren't. I'm not sure.
Yeah. How do you deal with it? Because I think we have this similar with our professions. Do you have agents and stuff like that, and the middle people, the business people?
We do have lots of middle people, and galleries work with art consultants, and then it depends which state you're selling in. So.
California, there's a lot of art consultants really dominate most of the proceedings. That they have to get their cut in it. That's how people buy the work through those people. Then the
big collectors have art consultants who you never meet the big collector. We rarely meet the art consultants. Actually, they deal with the gallery. Yeah. Anyway, so there's lots of middlemen, and they do a fantastic job because the rare moments when I've had to deal with clients has been really. It's horrible discussing large sums of money and your work. It's just, it just feels awful. So we're both very appreciative to the sort of teamwork in that way, aren't we?
Yeah. Look, up here in Oregon, it doesn't seem to go like that. I've never had a situation with an art consultant getting in there and between the gallery and the artist, right, and orchestrating it. It's just strange. It just doesn't. Different world, it seems. But
it's true. It's true.
It's fascinating. It's state by state. I didn't realise that. Yes. California.
They're like different countries. Yeah. It's really interesting coming from Europe or the UK to America. We realise the way it functions is, the states are like different countries to me.
Do you need someone different in each state, or like you just have one art rep who people can reach you through?
It depends how successful you are. So the next level, say Matthew and I are going to go to the big, this is where we go to the big money. That would be, you get a really famous gallery, and they would be an international gallery. And then they just do everything for you. And you can't have multiple galleries like we do.
They pretty much own you. If you get into that league of gallery, They are keeping an eye on everything you're making.
Yeah.
There's no way you can sell any of it to anybody else or have anyone else sell it.
But then they make you work really hard. They will send a cleaner to your house so that you have, or if you have children, someone to take your children to school. That your freedom is somewhat impinged at that level.
Wow, this is fascinating.
No, we can tell you some stories.
Or if you're best gear, you get supplied with cocaine.
Yes, or whatever you need to keep you producing.
Wow.
So just keep funneling whatever that creative beast is. They just want to keep shoveling the money in, and it's all commerce.
Factory farming.
Yeah, but the downside, we've known some people who've got up to that level, but the downside is you can get kicked off the level at any time. And then it's just like a very precipitous plunge.
Oh.
That's a little similar to Hollywood too.
Yeah. Wow. So Hollywood and the art world are very similar.
Is it like for us, it's very much like you might be like, oh, I love this piece of artwork. What else do you have? What are you doing next? When's your next show? What's your next thing? Is it like that for you guys too?
For us, it's not like that for us. It can be. It depends. I mean, unlike Matthew, I move deadlines if I don't hit them.
Oh.
But I like it that way. I like this.
So do you have like in mind, like, oh, after I finish this series, I'm going to do this other series, or you ride out one series and then when that's out of your system, you like wait for new inspiration to come?
Well, you plan everything.
Yeah, you just sort
pretty
of
much.
Usually,
you guys are such a great balance of how art can be done. You do it completely differently.
And I guess I'm more about the inspiration. But I have lots of notebooks and sketchbooks, and I have more than a lifetime's work of inspiration to work on. Especially as I do very fine, I've trained myself to use both hands, so I'm actually ambidextrous now.
Oh,
well done.
And how long does it take you to create a piece of art?
This one back here, this is like an 8 foot. How big is that, Matthew? 92 inches by 48. And how long does that take me? 3 months?
Yeah, probably
3 months.
Something like that.
On and off.
Both hands, dotting away.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
That's like a screenplay, then, isn't it? An artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. 3 months. 3 months seems to be the thing then for everyone. I was always told when we were writing a screenplay, my agent always used to go 3 months, 3 months. And then, of course, when you get to Hollywood and they go, can you do it in 3 weeks? Yeah. Yes, but
it's like, well, what quality are you looking for?
Yes. Do you want it to be any good?
So when do you guys have 2 studios at home, like separate spaces for you to create, or do you?
Definitely. Matthew is like he's like a rat. He kind of tears paper up and his whole place is like full of paper. Super messy, which you would never guess by looking.
No, I would have expected him to be the orderly one based on everything else you've said.
And I'm quite tidy, and I have to have serene tidiness and all my pens in order to start work. And so you've got the converted garage and the basement, and I have the whole upstairs floor now that the kids have left home. So I just...
Oh, you guys are parents too.
I know. Let's discuss that. I mean, not only are you artists, you have raised a family as artists. How's that been?
Well, that was great because we had a blended family, and Matthew, my God, was he good at helping out? Because I had one son, and I moved with him from London, and Matthew was fantastic. I got a lot more work done after. Childcare as well. No, I mean he had 2 children, so obviously we did the whole thing. Now they're one's in London, one's in Canada, one's in Portland. They're all.
Are your children creative too? Is like art part of the like family life?
Well, I think we might have put them off. I'm not sure.
They're all bankers and lawyers.
Yeah.
Well, not at all. I mean, my son's a musician, so he puts him off artistically. But he did at one point put his hands over his eyes when he was about 4 and say, "No more art."
Take those crayons away, mommy.
My youngest son's he's at university in Canada and doing computer science, but he's actually much more creative than it would seem. He's making his own line of clothes now. Yep. And he's just naturally very creative. So it's just sort of leaking out in different ways. Quite interesting to see where it's all going to go for him. So
But Sophie is a maths teacher. Yeah. His oldest is a maths teacher, which cannot have come from you.
Possibly. Dinosaur on that subject myself.
And being artists and parents, was that and that bank account which Claire never looked at? Did that stress you out at all, Matthew?
Well, they had its moments.
I think it scarred you forever. No, I mean, it was interesting because we would dread school holidays. We'd be like, shit, what are we going to do?
Yeah,
what are we going to do with them?
But somehow we managed to take them somewhere amazing every summer. We did it. We took them to Greece and we went to Hawaii and we went to I don't know, other places too. We managed to get to go and do something really exciting with them for several weeks each time.
Yeah, but it was really hard to work when they were around. Even though they try, you can't look after children and work at all until they're older, teenagers.
Yeah.
Then they don't want to be around you anyway, and they want you to go work.
Which is great.
That's right.
Well, this time has been flying by, so we're going to have to move to questions already, Casey, because we've just gone through it. All right. So as we've been talking about finances, I'm going to ask you about if you won the lottery tomorrow, and it's the big one. What would you do?
I know exactly what I'd do. I would do exactly what I'm doing, but I would build a massive studio. I mean, that's as simple. You would just expand and you would have people work for you.
Yeah.
So Matthew wasn't doing the framing and the shipping and everything else. You would have minions doing everything for you. It would be amazing. And we would have a cleaner.
Yeah, the cleaner. Yeah, there you go. We would just a bit less stress on all that. I don't think we'd make a massive change necessarily.
But you'd get a cleaner. Okay, that seems to be the headline there. You'd get a cleaner. All right, good. Casey.
All right. And what about Matthew? What would you do? Same thing? Is your answer the same?
Well, I mean, I would obviously participate in that studio. I mean, I might be interested in spending a year in a city, perhaps, and just renting a big studio and just doing some work and exploring that world. Probably.
This means we would get divorced if we want it, because there's no way I'm going back to the city.
Also, I'd say you don't have to rent. You could buy it. You've got so much money. But my grandfather used to say that the key to a long-lasting marriage is, my grandparents were married for like 64 years, is separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms, and when possible, separate houses. And wow.
Just part of the year, just for like a couple months here and there.
Yeah. You can meet at Christmas.
Different generation. Okay, what my question is, what is your favorite snack? Either to like inspire you or get you in the flow space, or to calm you when you're stressed out from looking at the bank account, or to celebrate, or any of those?
Champagne.
Oh.
Wow.
Actually, I'll tell you what. Whenever one of us sells something or a big job comes in or something like that, we go down to our local fabulous sushi restaurants and have amazing sushi and a glass of champagne. So I would say that's my favourite snack.
Yes, good snack.
We actually do that every week anyway.
That's a good little ritual. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Matthew?
What's your favourite snack to inspire you? Or
I think going for oysters and a glass of champagne is.
Wow, these are sophisticated people. Some people say like a tea and biscuits. No, oysters and champagne.
We just need to move somewhere that we have extra cash so we can have more champagne and sushi.
You know where to come.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah. Wow, life in Ashland is very different from Los Angeles. I want to know, what is your favourite animal and why?
Oh, that's easy.
Oh, easy.
Cats. Our cats. Berlioz. Our cat Berlioz. He's my favourite animal. He used to be a rabbit. I had a rabbit once.
I remember the rabbit. I like the rabbit.
He was really vicious, though.
He was vicious.
He was
a vicious rabbit.
He used to sit on my back when I was working. All my work. Yeah.
Oh.
Like the sense of danger where one nibble it'd be all
when you started veering off or he disapproved of what you were doing, he just give you a little nibble.
I was
like
the only person he didn't bite, wasn't
I know.
He bit everybody else. He came to a very sticky end. A mountain lion got him.
Oh.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Yeah, a hero's death, I think, really.
Yeah.
All right, Casey. Last questions over to you.
Okay. If we really knew you, what would we know about you?
You would know that I seem really, really nice when you talk to me. Okay, this is what my stepson said.
But you're not? Are you a terrible person on the inside? Is that what you're saying?
She's like the rabbit. She fights everybody that she doesn't know.
No, this is what my lovely stepson Asa said, who always tells me the truth. There was this beautiful little, it was for an art program. It was about Oregon artists, and they came and they filmed me in my natural environment and, you know, did all this kind of thing. And I took them for a walk in the woods, and Asa watched it and he said, "That's not what you're like."
Okay, so what would his answer be? What do you really like?
Well, I seemed all kind of like calm and maybe a little bit sort of floaty and like an elf in the forest. And really, I'm quite loud and shout and never think before I open my mouth. You know, I'm a human, not an elf.
I love it. How about you, Matthew?
I just like to have a really nice time and a lot of fun with people when they visit. And so I'm actually quite socially gregarious, I would
Yes,
say.
but what do you truly like?
What am I truly like? Well, that's a whole question to answer, I think. There's a mix of
I'll
things.
answer it for
Go
you.
on, you tell.
It actually is, exactly. He's very authentic. So what you're hearing now is what he's actually like. And he doesn't have a bad bone in his body. That's why I married him, because he's a really, really kind person.
That's very lovely. You two are like aspirational in your relationship and in your work and everything. Where can people find your work if they want to get to see some of what we're seeing behind you?
Well,
we've got shows coming up.
So Nancy Toomey Fine Art in San Francisco is one place where we both show there.
She's my favourite gallery.
Yeah. And I also show with Elizabeth Leach Gallery in Portland, and I have a show in June coming up soon. And you're going to have some work also with Corinne Clark in Eugene, aren't you?
Yes, and you can just find us on the internet.
Yeah.
So if you
have your own websites?
I have a couple of websites. I have a fine art and my wallpaper and print, websites. And you've got your Matthew Picton website.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I've got a couple of websites. Just throws it out there. Yeah. You've got a website. I've got a couple actually. Yeah.
I love making money, which is rare for an artist, but I actually enjoy it.
Well, you figured out how to print it yourself, so great. You can teach us all a thing or two.
Yeah. If you want any money printing, please go to claireburbridge.com and she will print you out $100 bills. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. The yin and yang of artists.
Yes, so much. Thank you both.
Claire Burbridge and Matthew Picton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for spending time with us. Everybody go out and look at some art.
It's been such a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure
Thank you.
Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.